Welcome to the Becoming Legendary podcast. This week, Brian and I had an amazing opportunity to speak with Mary from the Pale Blue Dot. The Pale Blue Dot is one of the coolest, most incredible retail stores on the planet. They are a general store based in Hamilton, Ontario, who we have crossed paths with. And since that has happened, I have just been absolutely fascinated with what they're doing. So this general store, right? A general store in 2022, just alone is mind blowing to me. But the things that they're doing to support their community with like truly ethically sourced, responsibly made goods that are just high quality and support things that Mary really cares about, like low waste and slow living and healthy living, are truly amazing. So check out the paleblue.shop.com because they have absolutely incredible things that you've never seen before. And check out their Instagram as well. Mary does an incredible job. Her and her partner just kudos and kudos and kudos to what they're doing because it's mind-blowing to me, and I'm more and more impressed every time I see something. So we also get in this conversation, we revisit the shopping cart debate. And like usual, I'm on the opposite side of everybody else. So I just want to take a moment to kind of extrapolate some information that I found about that shopping cart idea. And then we'll jump right into the podcast with Mary and blow your minds. So the shopping cart concept kind of boils down to two different things. And this is what I realized with help of my partner, Hollis, who has kind of illuminated some ideas for me that have been really helpful to understand the general consensus around this. The general consensus is that if somebody doesn't put their shopping cart away, we should be kind enough to offer them the grace that they couldn't do that day. And my message is always the same, which is they can do it. And we need to hold humans to a higher level of accountability. What Hollis really pointed out to me is that this is not necessarily a variance in opinion. It's a variance in where we view the problem. If you come at this from an individual experience, it's very easy to feel sympathy for an individual who's having a bad day, right? We've all had bad days, so we know what that experience is like. And I can understand that, and I can empathize with that, but it doesn't solve the problem. And I'm really big into solving problems. And the thing that I continually hit on around this concept is that if there isn't a societal pressure, then individuals will not shift their attitudes or actions. And by societal pressure, I mean, we all need to hold each other accountable to doing the right thing in the moment. And if we are always offering everyone the grace and opportunity to push their bad day into our community becomes worse. So while I can understand on an individual level how you might, as an individual on a bad day, want the grace of not putting your shopping cart away, I think that if we want to make a better planet, if we want to make a better society, if we want to make a better community, if we want to make a better neighborhood, we need to hold humans to their highest potential. And if the community holds each individual to its highest potential, the community gets better. And that's what I hope we do. So without further ado, let's get into a phenomenal conversation with Mary from the Pale Blue Dot.
There are no gold medals for down dog.
Maximize every opportunity so that you can become legendary.
What adjustments can you make right now to make yourself 1%
Your
better?
only goal is to be the best version of you.
Mary, welcome to Becoming Legendary. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Glad to hear that. Will you do us the favor of just giving us a 30-second, 120-second summary of who you are today?
Oh my goodness. Okay, I will try. My name's Mary Luciani. I'm the founder and co-owner of the Pale Blue Dot, which is a small family-run store in Hamilton, Ontario. We're a general store, apothecary, and we focus on all earth-friendly goods that are sustainable alternatives for everyday use. And then we also sell vintage and antiques. It's a really fun, eclectic mix of everything I love, essentially. Um, as a person, though, I'm just very conscious of living a life in balance with nature, doing what I can to give back to the earth and live in balance with her. And yeah, that's kind of the deal ski of me.
Rad. Rad, and thank
Perfect.
you.
Yeah, it's perfect.
So we cross paths through your shop, Pale Blue Dot. And I have found it to be one of the most fascinating kind of experiences at a retail level that I have witnessed, obviously from afar. But before I waste any time, I need to know more about slow living.
Okay. Yeah.
So
So slow. Do you have a
yeah,
specific
no, give
question?
me your definition of slow living.
So my definition would be just living consciously, being aware of the things that you're using, be aware of the things that you're consuming and how much of it. And then, leaving the earth in a better state than which you came into this world, maybe. But really just doing your best. It's just about never taking what you have and what's around you for granted.
It's super interesting. So
It is.
slow living has become it's become a thing that is repeated here, pretty much on the daily. And it's just like I find the interesting thing where you said doing your best, right? Always doing your best, because I think if I gave the average human survey 100 people and I said, where do these two things fall? Always doing your best and slow living, where on that spectrum? My guess is most people will put them on pretty far ends.
Oh, really? I would say that they're like right next to each other for me anyway.
Yeah,
For
no, I
you,
think
yeah.
I think that's it's a cool thing to have those two things thought of as a singular concept, because I don't think
Yeah.
most people would think of things that way.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And then there becomes so much stress wrapped up around the subject, which shouldn't be there. Shouldn't be there, you know?
So Mary, you just didn't wake up one day being aware. Well, I mean, you were aware of some things, right? But I mean, so I want to dive into that a little bit deeper. So how do you like what kind of practices do you practice on the daily to increase your awareness or to up level your slow living capabilities, right? Because like with anything, it's a practice.
Mm.
So how do you practice those two things?
So I guess for me, what brought me to this state, well, there are so many things, but in my current day, gardening really encapsulates a lot of my values and it has really opened my awareness to the sacredness of so much on this planet, and just simply being in the garden can, for me, it's like a private viewing of life on a very small scale, but in also such a big way. You know what I mean? It's like life unfolding, and there's so many little lessons to be learned in a garden, which then trickle into these thought rhizomes that are like, oh my gosh, this relates to this. And it's honestly, I can't even really think of an example right now because they're so intertwined with everything, but I hope that makes sense. But just building the relationship with nature has really helped me build my relationship with everything around me, and this like eternal gratitude that just never seems to end.
That's a good answer. There's so much that nature both gives, all right, and that we receive from it too. So it's kind of it's a dual relationship that a lot of which the pale blue dot is built upon. You know, as you mentioned, some of your values I was reading online really relate to exactly what you just said.
Yeah, yeah, and the pale blue dot has definitely evolved over the years. Like it started very much with my journey of wanting to produce less waste in the world. So, um, like finding these alternatives that aren't disposable, or that are, if they are disposable, then they're 100% natural, so they'll just go back into the earth and add to the earth's soil again instead of deplete it. And as the journey progressed over the past 5 years, I became much more aware of my own health in relationship to the earth's health, dealing with some like personal health issues, and then realizing the synchronicity between the earth's health and mine, and how far away we become from, organic being, or living as an organic being. And yeah, this separation that we have from what is natural. We're supposed to be of that world, but every day we seem to be farther and farther from it. And so the pale blue dot has kind of evolved, and my values have kind of evolved to people and planet, health of people and planet. And that's been a really interesting pathway. And it's how I found you guys, because we really wanted to expand our health and wellness line. Um, going back to that doing your best. If you can't help the planet, you can't live a slow life if you're not healthy yourself. How are you supposed to give back if you're depleted? So really finding that balance between your own health and building yourself up, and then you can help the planet as well.
I love that. So what kind of gardening experience do you have? Did you just start sort of getting your hands in the dirt from a young age, or was that something that you grew to love as you grew into your age that you are now?
So I'm very new to gardening,
Me too.
myself. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's amazing because, well, when you first start out, it's very easy to be of the mindset like, oh my gosh, like there's so much to know. How am I ever supposed to know all this stuff? But that's the fun of it. It's like witnessing it and trying new things. And oh, well, that didn't work out next year or this year, but maybe next year it will. So it's very new to me. But I grew up watching my nonno garden, and his garden was just like, oh, a chef's kiss. It was so awesome. And
Cool.
he's an Italian farmer, right? So he came over here, and the first thing he did was build a garden. But I just always just watched that and loved eating the preserves from his garden. And but I was very much, it's interesting. I wasn't very I don't know, when I was in my teens and such, I was very much disconnected from Earth. I was very like, ooh, like spiders are gonna touch me, or like the dirt. I don't really want to get dirty, or I don't want to go in the ocean. And yeah, it's been like this untightening of this knot where I'm like, oh, easing into it again over the past 10 years. And it's just, now that I'm immersed in it, I'm like, I just want all of it.
So good. There's so many takeaways for someone, who lives in a city, right? And has thought about getting their hands in the dirt and just has never done it. Like it's just about crossing that barrier, getting over your own fear, if you will, to go ahead and get your hands in the dirt and start somewhere. That's kind of the same journey I'm on as well. Patrick is of course our master grower, and his hands are in the dirt probably right now as we're talking. But and he's got so much experience, right? So, but if you ask him how he learned by trial and error. He just learned by getting into the practice. So, what a great sort of lesson, or something that people can maybe take away, is that when you're trying to find your passion, or you want to try something new, like it doesn't matter where you came from, the opportunity is always there if you just step through that door. That's always open, really. Like it's never closed. You just have to imagine yourself already gardening, for example, and the
Yeah,
opportunity is there.
yeah, and just move some soil over, plant some seeds, water it, and see what happens.
Exactly.
So simple.
Do you know, Mary, do you know how that shift started for you from being adverse to spider interactions
Mm.
to being cognizant of the organic matter that makes up the being that you are today?
Ooh, I love this question. I haven't considered much of that, but I think traveling really made a huge impact in that. Um, Witnessing just all these different landscapes and just falling in love with what this earth has to offer in terms of everything, all her gifts and sights and sounds and creatures. Um, and then I think really when I started gardening 4 years ago, 5 years ago, that's a huge shift happened. And I'm lucky that I have a partner who loves gardening. He's all about it. And yeah, just being out in the garden really just has, I don't know, completely opened up my heart to like I'm okay with the little creature crawling all over my arms. Like it's okay. And bees I used to be so scared of. And now I've realized if you just stay calm and you're just, like, hey buddy, how's it going? And they just fly around you and they'll leave you alone and they'll go pollinate the flower next to your hand where you're, maybe chopping a flower to bring inside and press or something. They're so happy to live in harmony with us.
Mm. Love that.
Yeah. Yeah. So the exposure to more of Earth is really the thing that you felt like opened your window to gardening, plus connecting with a partner who was already ingrained in a gardening lifestyle.
Mhm.
Do you
Yeah, I
know?
think
Tell me.
connecting with it, like just having my hands touch the soil, it's like the natural grounding effect of earth almost like recalibrates you. You know what I mean? It's
Mm.
like this is where you're meant to be. You're a part of this. Like don't be afraid of it. This is you. It's all
Let's
you.
go.
Yeah,
You know?
it's more than just being a part of it, right? Like we are literally an accumulation of earth that we have scooped up and we hold for a finite amount of time, and then sooner or later we will be earth once again.
Yes.
Mm.
Ugh, I love it so much. Yes.
Um
Freaking magical.
so and I know you said you didn't have any specific lessons from the garden, but have
Mm.
had in that journey, have there been any specific lessons in that journey? Are there any like specific ideas that have been like, I will tell you for me, and this is kind of what I'm hoping there might be a moment or two from you. For me, when I first got into growing things, I had like a an adversity to consuming it because I was so familiar with everything that it touched, that it was a part of. Like I knew the birds that shit on it. I knew
Mm.
what insects had been on it. And we've created this like whitewashed idea of produce in a grocery store, right? Where everything sits in these little neat stacks underneath misters. And we think of it as a very different thing than what it actually is. It is a thing that was probably covered in bird shit. Like it's pretty
Mm.
unlikely that it
Yeah.
wasn't. But I remember like very specifically having the realization of like, oh, there it's not like the carrots at the grocery store didn't have this experience. I just don't know about it. They
Mm.
probably had the experience much worse than me.
Mm.
Why? What is the adversity? And really overcoming that very early in my gardening lifestyle was very profound for me. Is there anything like that along your path?
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. So first of all, like you had an adversity to harvesting it and then consuming it because it's like, oh, we had so much time together. That was so nice. I feel that way about harvesting herbs, like or flowers or whatever it may be. I'm like, oh, but you're so perfect in your flowerness right now, but I would like to pick you and enjoy you at my desk.
Yeah.
Um, but, yeah, I get that. Actually, there was something very sweet that happened earlier this year, and So over the past few years, I've been dealing with some eye troubles, and part of that is some cataracts have set in, and it's really taken away a lot of my favorite tasks that I love to do in the garden, being, and being proactive in the garden, or productive, I should say, in the garden. And this year, the cataracts are just in full bloom. And I was standing in the garden, and Perry was working away, and I was just standing there. I'm like, I have no job to do here. And there's nothing, like, I want to contribute to this garden so badly, and I want to be able to, put my energy into working and tending this garden, and letting it and helping it thrive. And I was really sad in that moment, and I just kind of sat down in the middle of the garden crying a little bit. And I just had this overwhelming feeling of the plants around me saying to me, Mary, we just like you being here with us. It's okay. Like, it's nice just to have you here. That's enough. And I could just feel it so deeply inside me, and it was such a sweet moment. So it kind of made me realize it was a lesson in that a garden doesn't always need someone to be tending to it. Sometimes it just needs someone to enjoy it and sit there and soak in its glory. It doesn't always have to be work. And that was beautiful.
That's
Yeah.
super
I'll
rad.
never forget. Yeah.
Yeah, that is true, right? The joy of the garden is the quiet moment of stillness, right? Like the moment before the sun fully breaks and heats the world. It's like those are the beautiful times when you're not attached to a implement.
And that's so this is an example of how it ties back into like a life lesson in that, this slow living, it's about enjoying the moments too, stepping back and enjoying your life, and being able to slow down and soak it up, because life is for that too. It's not just for go, go, go and be productive, that there needs to be space for that too.
Okay, so I want to kind of get into that line of delineation there, because I imagine that the experience of PBD isn't always as slow as maybe would be idealistic. Is that true?
Yeah, the behind the scenes process of it. Say that is true.
Yeah.
So, and I imagine like the city-esque component or the urban component of running a shop like that, a retail experience like that, a general store in the middle of what is a legitimate city, right? Like there's an energetic speed that exists there. How do you protect yourself from being drawn into that the rapidness of capitalism?
Yes. Well, first of all, it's some kind of strange magic energy in the store that doesn't make it feel that hard to do.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is when customers come in, it's almost like they feel that too, and they're able to slow down when they come into the store, and it's unexplainable, really. I really don't know how to explain it, but people will come in. I would say 7 out of 10 times they will say, it smells so good in here. And it's just like the first deep breath that they've had in a long time, it almost feels like.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's just the natural products in the store. There's no candle going. There's no anything. It's just they're smelling what seems natural to them, I think. Um, and honestly, it's such an interesting energy in the shop where people can come in and we'll be chatting here and there, and we will just have the most incredible, deep life chats, and it's like a therapy session for all of us, just
It's so good.
community love. And yeah, it really doesn't feel like I have to try to be to push myself or to push away the hustle and bustle of things in the shop. It really just happens so naturally.
That's really
Unexplainable though. I don't know.
that's really a reflection of you. Like,
Yeah.
because I just wanted to share, Patrick used to own a yoga studio here in Arizona, and the name of the yoga studio was called Vitality, and it was the same sort of energy that you're talking about. It was, I'm a yoga teacher. I've taught in my yoga studios all over the state, right? And never have I walked into a space quite like what he had cultivated there. It was calm, it was peaceful, it smelled good. There were conscious, connected conversations that just happened. I mean, you didn't have a choice. It was just as long as you led with an open heart, that open heart was met with another open heart. So
Yeah.
that's kudos to you, really.
Aw.
And that's especially in the middle of, I mean, patrick's Patrick's studio was in the middle of the city in Chandler, so it was much of the same. Not sure about Hamilton, Ontario, but a similar, capitalistic vibe to it, right? So it was just a place where people could let down their guard, take their mask off, not the, take their mask off that they wear sometimes out in the world, and just be a human. And that's really, really rare and really, really rad. So again, kudos to you on creating such a space where people feel comfortable and safe enough, right? That's a key word, safe, just to be themselves.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And kudos to you. I mean, I feel like you guys possess the exact same energy like you were saying about Patrick. You too, though, Brian. And I think that's how we were like called to connect because we were just
Mm.
like, soul friends.
Exactly. Patrick and I often joke whenever we make contact Mary or something, we're always like, we're gonna make a trip up to there, Ontario, sometime soon. so so
Yeah.
so whenever you see Patrick and I ride down on one of those Canadian horses I saw in that video you guys had. I'm just kidding. We'll be riding a horse, but no, I think it'd be really cool just to
I
show up
think
one
you
day.
should.
Yeah, there you go.
I would knock on the window. Big flag.
I was watching your YouTube video, and you were outside talking to a horse, and I was
Yeah.
like, I want to talk to that horse. That was super cool. It's just like a rare interaction between a human and a horse outside of your rad store. I thought it stood
Oh,
out to me, so I had to weave that
that
in
was the
somehow, I
best.
guess.
Yeah, that was our first day open,
Oh,
and
cool.
that horse, his name's Lincoln, and he walks up and down the street with Officer Ryan, and yeah, I mean, I was not expecting to see a horse ever outside of my
Yeah,
shop window the
exactly.
first day. There he was. I was like, I love it. I love this here.
That's incredible. That's
So funny.
incredible.
So great.
When you had the idea of Pale Blue Dot, and the idea was related to reducing, let's say, did you have a vision as to what it was going to become at that point?
Um, you know what? From the start, I never really had like, oh, a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan. It all just happened so fast that I never really had time to think about the future, and I was just so focused. What are we doing today, or this week? So no, I never really had a plan of how it was to evolve, and I don't think I could have imagined it evolving to what it is today. And I love it so much. I love what we're doing today so much. How we've grown and the paths that we take in. Yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't have imagined.
Can you tell me, or give me maybe a description of what I think your favorite component of being a part of this thing that you've created is now today? Like, what is your favorite part of Pale Blue Dot today? And maybe even how that compares to what your favorite part of Pale Blue Dot was when you started.
That's changed.
Okay. Yeah. So from the beginning, okay, so now my favorite component is definitely our wellness collection. So branching out into the tinctures and potions and tonics, and I absolutely love being able to share that with people. It's a huge passion of mine to improve my wellness on a physical and mental level. And I just want to share that with as many people as possible. And that has involved a ton of education on my part behind the scenes. And it's so fascinating to me because I was always the artistic kid. And, I was known for drawing and music and painting. And I had this love for science, but I never really realized how much of an interest I had in it until I gave it space to grow
That's great.
in the past 4 years. And the science of healing and health and how plant medicine fits in with that fascinates me. And that's something I'm so excited to keep sharing with people. So excited. Um, and before, I think I'm trying to think back. It's hard. It's funny thinking back. My favorite aspect of the Pale Blue Dot has always been that like you do your best. You do not have to check off all of the boxes if you're going to try to live quote zero waste or sustainably. It looks different for everybody, so never try to fit yourself into this box. It's just it's not necessary in my opinion, Stop stressing yourself out. Do your best. And that has always been the main view of the Pale Blue Dot. If we're gonna live sustainably, please just do your best.
What would be three tips or one tip that you can offer our audience for a way to start living sustainably? Because I think it's, for some people, like we touched on earlier, it's a completely foreign idea. It literally is. I mean, the garbage comes once a week, they take it away and people never think about it. So from one science nerd to another, I want to just peel back the layers of that a little bit. Can you offer up some insight that might be some good tips in that way?
Sure. So in the beginning, this is what I always used to tell people. First, assess your trash. If you want to focus on lowering your waste impact, assess your trash. Where are you producing the most waste? And then think about ways that you can cut back. Maybe it's plastic wrap, maybe it's plastic packaging on your produce or whatever it is. Then look at ways that you can avoid that. Cut the fat, trim the fat, and then you can look at ways to reuse what you have. So what do you have around your house that you typically be recycling or throwing away, and how can you focus on reusing that? Save your pickle jars, save your jam jars, and see how you can integrate those into your everyday life. Another thing would be DIY, do it yourself. What can you make at home? Or shopping for local produce in the summer months. Thankfully, we have farmers market, or shopping local produce from the produce section. So grown in Ontario or wherever you are. Those would be three major ones that you can have a huge impact with in your life.
We all wrote that down. Super solid.
Can I imagine there's a reason that the desire to reduce waste became so important to you? Do you know how that became your focus?
Yeah. Well, you know what? Growing up, I was always taught to conserve, definitely, and conserve water. Don't waste electricity. Turn off the lights. So that was really embedded in me from a young age, and I think it was more so on a this is a waste of money standpoint. Things cost money. Don't be wasting them. But from a young age, I did learn about how it impacts the earth as well. Why are we wasting water when it there's energy that's involved in having to treat it and get it to us and all this stuff. And then, there was no real moment that I can pinpoint in terms of becoming aware of the waste, in terms of plastic, but just the imagery that kept following me of landfills and littered oceans and littered lakesides, beaches. It just kept following me, I guess. I don't know. I just became very aware of it. And I was like, well, I've got to do something myself. So, yeah, what can I do to help?
That's a pretty rad
Yeah.
perspective on things. Do you ever think about the macro perspective of that problem, right? And I think the answer is interesting, right? The answer is if everybody took the approach to life that Mary's taken to life, we wouldn't have a problem, right? We'd be in a really good place. But so far that hasn't happened. So do you ever think about this problem on a more macro level and solutions that might be viable on a global scale or a national scale, I guess?
Yes. This used to really stress me out.
Yeah.
I always felt like I can't reach enough people. I don't want to be that person that's like shoving information down people's throats. Like it's just not the person that I want to be. So like, how do I educate without being that guy, you know? Um, and that really stressed me out. And then I realized how much conflicting information there is out there in terms of like so many things, and that stressed me out. And it got to the point where I completely shut down and I didn't share anything anymore.
Mhm.
Um, and that pause brought me to the conclusion. My personal perspective now is everyone is going to do their best, and that's going to look different for everybody. And I think it's really important that the average person does not hold themselves accountable for the world's issues, because this is a conscious, um what's the word, a collective consciousness issue, and also that you can only change by doing your best yourself. um and also a mega corporation issue, that if these corporations aren't going to be held to account, then all you can do is really do your best until there's this like massive shift. And I mean, there's so many different ways you could approach this. And I think everyone has their role. So like some people are going to be very vocal and they're going to be, you know, activists, and they're going to go out there and they're going to send letters and they're going to protest these mega corporations for their pollution. And some people have a more passive role, and I think that's very much okay. We can't expect other people to step into roles that they're just not born to be in. And I think it's really important to, this is another gardening lesson, really think of the collective on earth, all these different humans, as like the little microbiome in a garden. Everything has its role, and I full-heartedly believe that we are on the path to do good and to have major changes. Um, it's just keeping that collective energy high and full of love and supporting each other. Because if we're constantly pointing the finger or saying like you're not doing enough, that's not doing anything positive for the world in the direction that we want to shift it. So yeah, just all goes back to that. Inspiring people by how you're living, and just keep living your values. Live slowly if that's the way you want to live, and yeah, just show gratitude and emanate gratitude and love out there.
Yes. there's something that you keep saying that I want to reflect back to you, and it's simply do your best, right? So I often use this statement in my yoga teachings when I'm teaching class, and it goes like this: it's do your best and surrender the rest. So it's do your best and surrender the rest.
I love that.
And I say that in the beginning of practice because a lot of times, this is specifically talking in the yoga community, there's these expectations that you said you put upon yourself as what your practice, quote unquote, should look like, or judgments that come up, or comments or concerns, right, in your brain about whether or not your best is enough.
Mm-hmm.
And like you so brilliantly mentioned a few times, someone's best can look different. Like my best is going to be different than Patrick's best, and which is going to be different than what your best looks
Mm-hmm.
like. But as long as we're continuing to do our best and then give ourselves the grace of surrendering the rest,
Mm-hmm.
surrendering the comparisons, surrendering the judgments, surrendering the fear, like that word best is held to such a high standard. I feel like sometimes that by simply adding in that surrender the rest softens it just a little bit, and it gives the experience or the opportunity for the person trying to do their best, like, to really grow, and to have their best really just mean that, like, it's just the best for them. Yeah.
I love that so much. Can be put into all aspects of life, I feel like. It's such a good reminder.
100%.
I
I
will.
love your laugh.
It
That
never gets old. I know. I just call him up some days and he just laughs, and I'm like,
That's
what's so
true.
funny?
I need this as like my alarm waking up. That's what I want to wake up to.
Right? Oh my
Just
God.
laugh.
That's going to be a sacred plan co-offering. You just nailed it, Mary. That is
Ringtone.
so good. That is so
Yeah.
good. Oh my goodness.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you guys this. I wasn't gonna ask you guys this, but I'm gonna ask you guys this because I think, to me, this is a conversation. This is a conversation that happens, I don't know, 200 times in this podcast now, and it is. I think there is a reality that if everyone is doing their best, we have a very different world. And I always fall on the side of, and I could be wrong, I hope I'm outnumbered 2-1 here, but I always fall on the side of, like, I don't know, 99.9% of people aren't doing their best. And and I like holding people accountable to what they're capable of. And I think in that we're probably saying the same thing. But what I find a lot of times will happen, and the shopping cart example is so perfect, right? Is like somebody takes a shopping cart and they don't put it away, and then I'm like, yo, that's not a cool thing. And someone will offer an excuse for them, like, oh, well, they're trying. And my response is always, hey, if you had the capability of taking a shopping cart from a grocery store door to your car, I know for a fact you have a capability to take that shopping cart from your car to the cart corral. And where I lose the thread of this is when I see the potential of humans being wasted. And I think when we offer too much leeway, when we offer too much grace for the, like, well, my best today was I took the shopping cart from the store to my car, and then I don't care, I'm driving away, so who cares what happens to that shopping cart? So I want to know how you guys draw that line, because I think I draw the line differently and maybe incorrectly. So bring me to your line. How do you guys draw the line of, like, oh yeah, that person's doing their best, I trust that person?
Ladies first.
Well, I think your feelings are completely valid in that point. And I've definitely been in that mind mindset or headspace where I'm just like, okay, come on, like it's really not that hard. Um, and I agree that there's a lot of complacency in this world where a lot of people are very content in doing as little as possible, maybe.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, for sure.
and yeah, I mean, I completely understand the frustration in that. Something that I've learned through Ayurveda is that with Ayurveda and this body of knowledge for healing, it's really important that the person asks, so that wants to come to it, and it's not in the practice to push it outward and try to um, teach people who don't want to be taught. And it kind of goes into my belief of we're all here, my soul in this body is here to learn some things specific to what is needed to elevate me forward and into the next life. And there are some lessons that maybe I won't learn. I'll keep repeating the same pattern, and I won't learn that lesson in this life that I'm supposed to. And that
Yeah.
will carry on to the next life. And now going back into terms of action and people doing their best in this life, I think messages and lessons come in circles, and people will eventually either grasp it on maybe the second or the third or the fourth or the 11th time that they hear something or see something, and they're like, oh, I should return that cart. That is the right thing to do. Or maybe they won't. And I think the best thing to do is just lead by example and treat people with just a disgusting amount of kindness. Um, so that they're like, oh, that person was really nice, or that person made a really good point, and maybe I should make some changes. I don't know. That's just my personal perspective. Um,
Was the statement a disgusting amount of kindness?
yes,
Yeah,
kill
I
them with
like
your
it.
kindness.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it.
One of our favorite things to do, if I can speak for you, Patrick, just for a moment, is to walk into someone like a grocery store or a coffee shop and see someone who's having just a really terrible day, and immediately trying to be disgustingly kind to them, and watch their interaction, watch their energy, watch how their experience of life changes simply by the reflection of someone who just wants to be a nice human for
Yeah,
no other reason. We're not trying to get anything out of you. There's nothing that we're trying to manipulate you on. We're just like, how is your day going? Like, how are you today? And like, they'll be like, I'm not, I'm fine. Like, and Patrick, I've seen him numerous times and I've gotten this from him. I can't take credit for this. He'll ask a follow-up question. It's like, no, really, how are you doing? Like not this job that you're at. Like, how are you as a person? Like, what's up with you? And he keeps following up. There's a few times I had to turn my back and walk out because I was embarrassed. Like, I started to get the sweats, but there's such medicine in that. And now the person who's getting sweats is my wife, because I'm doing this all the time in places of business that we're out. And she's like, what are you doing? Leave that poor person alone. And I'm like, did you just see how that frown turned into a smile, love? Like, that's the magic right there. So yeah, I really think that's just an interesting point there. And I would say this, that about doing the best piece. Like, you never know what the person who you see not do, quote unquote, not doing their best has experienced either before whatever they're doing is not at their best, or in their life. For example, maybe the person who brought the shopping cart out to their car was like limping and had a really bad leg, and they couldn't bring the cart back. Like, they didn't have the strength, right? So there's these things that you can't. Oh, there you are. Hi, Mary.
I just realized my camera wasn't on. Sorry.
I'm like looking down at my microphone. All of a sudden, I look up. There's this beautiful Mary. What's up? But that would be my only caveat, you know, like, and there's some pieces that are certainly unknown to the outside perspective, and also what you're seeing, like what we're seeing another person do is also coming through our filter. So we are, you know, we are in the quote unquote business of trying to do our best all the time. So some people just don't have that availability for whatever reason, and it's that saddens my heart, because the world has been so hard on them, and it's been such a difficult experience for them that they can't even seem to access that part of themselves.
Yeah, I love that perspective, Brian, about, you know, turn your mind to think about maybe that guy physically could not put the cart back because of some issue. Because and it kind of it's helpful to you in your own consciousness and your own state of mind to keep yourself elevated and not assume the worst in somebody else, and always assume the best in someone else. And again, that elevated state of energy is going to help from it's going to seep out into the world, and it's going to just naturally help raise everybody else's energy level.
That's it.
Hey, I'm outnumbered 2-1, but that person just left a $5,000 bomb in the parking lot that is going to destroy someone's property. And I don't give them the excuse whether they had a hurt leg or not.
Okay.
My 98-year-old grandmother puts her shopping cart away.
God bless her.
Yeah, God bless her. We need more grandmas like yours. My goodness.
Well, yeah, we need it. She is gone, to be fair, but she did put her shopping cart away when she was around, and I do feel like, but I think there's an interesting thing. I was talking about this the other day. Is like there is a change in humans as they age, right? And there becomes a point where they're like, hey, it's harder for me. And the reality is it is harder for people as they age, right? There are physical limitations that are implied upon us as we age. And it's like, if a 98-year-old woman is walking into the grocery store and we're like walking on the same path, well, I should get out of the way, because it's way easier for me to get out of the way than for her to get out of the way. So there is a reality of like, it's harder for people, but man, leaving your problem on society, that's where my real problem is like, oh, I have a problem, well, I'll just dump it on society and society will figure that out. I cannot conceptualize a way where that's good.
Yeah, there's like littering. There's no way that I can wrap my head around the idea of someone just dropping their trash.
Yeah.
You know.
Yes.
Maybe they didn't realize they dropped it, but I don't know. I don't even
You
know
guys
what to
are
say.
so much nicer than I am. So much nicer than I am.
Very true. All right, true confession. I'm gonna throw myself under the bus here for a moment, because this is all transparency, but so it's all good. So when I was younger, I used to litter all the time. Like all of the time. Like in high school, like even into college. It was actually something I did to feel like a dangerous person or something like that, like to access this side of me that
Ryan's
was
a bad boy.
Yeah, no, I'm not. As bad as I get to throw, but like, so it's, and I remember as I started to grow into the person that I'm still growing into, or wherever that's trending, it's that I would notice other people littering, and it started to become a frame of reference for me, where I was like, that was me just a few short years ago, you know? So what I end up, whenever I see somebody littering, it's unless I'm driving, of course, I will make a point to go up and ask them, just like, what is the reason for you leaving that like on the ground? And just that little question may or may not change their behavior, but at least it puts a thought in their head, right? So, and that's spreading the high vibrations, those love vibrations out to the world, in places where sometimes darkness is prevalent. And like with anything else, I feel like going that extra step, asking that extra question, putting your shopping cart away, like those little things add up over time. They really do.
Yeah, genuine curiosity. That's so nice. Yeah, just like, I'm just so curious. I want to get to know you on this level.
Yes.
Why?
Yes. Why? Exactly right.
You guys are just too nice. It's lovely.
Come to the
Patrick,
light side.
you're nice. You're nice too, brother. You don't give yourself enough credit, man.
Yeah. It's yeah. We all have we all have very interesting lines. And it's what makes us human. It is what makes us human for sure. I want to ask you on the like, so back on a more macro level, when you're thinking about the carbon problem, really, is there anything that you and your team directly focus on in specifically that specific problem, the carbon problem on the planet? Is there anything you guys are specifically focused on in the moment?
Sourcing as locally as possible, first of
Yeah.
all. And something I'd really like to implement this year, I just want to find a good local partner, is to plant trees in like synchronicity with our sales. That I really, really want to do. I just feel like, why are we cutting down all these trees and growing them just to cut when trees are clearly like the answer here, you know, and revitalizing this land, turning like, can we help this soil? So that's something that we're excited to like move forward in doing too. The trees, and then revitalizing soil. I'd really like to partner with Burlington or Hamilton, two neighboring cities, to revitalize soil and turn, for example, we have these bike paths behind our homes and behind my house, and it's just grass. And it's like, there's so much space for growing food here. Why aren't we doing that? Especially in, with people, there's a food security issue. It's so expensive.
Yeah.
And the quality of it coming is not very great. So those are two areas that we really want to focus on moving forward.
Exciting.
Cool. Heck yeah. Trees.
Heck yeah.
Trees are the absolute jam.
Yeah, they are. Someone's got 70 of them coming to his property sometime soon.
Ooh.
Yeah.
70 new friends.
Yeah.
Yes.
We are definitely reforesting and working on the tree subject. Like, man, I think that there's such a misunderstanding of the importance of trees, right? It's like, trees, they're kind of pretty, sometimes they're messy, but the ability to sequester carbon, and not only the sequestering of carbon, but the actual shading of our planet that actually cools things down is so just incredibly important. So we're looking at, we have just started to experience a like at the micro level. So we have just started to experience on our property the first invasion of pine beetles, and pine beetles are a pretty interesting problem, because we've been looking at where the funding is for pine beetle solutions in the United States. And as far as we can tell, there is pretty close to zero funding going towards prevention, and a lot of funding going to lumber companies harvesting beetle wood. Wow. And that is fascinating to me. it is, and there is, so, you know, you get pine beetles and you're like, okay, well, let's go to the internet and we'll find out what the internet says how to solve this problem. And the solution is cut down the tree. There is no other solution. It is cut down the tree. And I feel pretty comfortable that we're going to have a viable solution in 12 months as to something that we can put forth on a localized test level and get hopefully to the right forestry people. But there does not seem to be much interest. And that is pretty wild when you think about what is going on with our climate and the fact that we're watching entire forests turn brown and no one seems to even care to have a solution.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. We've been seeing that here. I've heard of, sorry.
So it hasn't really impacted you guys yet. Is that true?
So I just heard of these pine beetles recently with a friend who works on a farm. But we've had a similar issue with a specific moth up here, and it's been just devastating so many trees. And it's funny, like I've heard people who have cottages up in Muskoka and they're like, oh yeah, like half the trees up there, like what's amazing, the landscape is completely changed, so many trees we lost. And then the conversation just ends. Like,
But
what are we doing?
yeah. And
like, so the trees are dying, and eventually these moths or the beetles are going to find new species that they're going
Yes.
to
Yep.
take into their diet.
Yes.
So yeah, preventative. I don't understand why it's not more of a conversation.
Yeah. but like, hey, in the current moment, planting trees is probably the best thing we can do.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Patrick and I were
The
having this.
more food, the better.
Yeah.
Yes.
We were having this conversation a couple days ago, and I turned on the TV, and there was there was a nature show that I always watch. Excuse me, it's called the Green Planet, I think, and they had about a 6 or 7 minute expo, like story on the pine beetles, and it was just only about the damage that it was causing. Again, what we're talking about, there was nothing to do with solution based. There was nothing to do about preventive measures. It was only talking about, you know, how scary this problem really is, and how quickly it can sort of expand and grow. So it's very interesting that again, that can't be someone's best by not addressing this issue in a little bit deeper level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the
Some
trees
scientists,
that you guys are planting, the trees that you guys are planting, are you hoping that it will help with this beetle issue?
So everything that we're almost everything that we're putting in now is deciduous. We have a lack of carbon in our soil problem, so we're always looking for leaf litter. So we have some very, like, we have a pinyon population which we will be testing this pine beetle solution on, and then we're looking to reforest with aspen, hazelnut, legume. What is that legume? Who knows? Brain is only able to pull up a couple, but we're really looking for things that are going to drop leaves every year, just because we need that to get into the soil.
Yeah.
But the solution that we're coming up with is pretty remarkably simple and incredibly effective, and I just can't see it. I just can't see it not working from what we've seen so far. So it is very good. It's just very weird that there isn't a lab somewhere that is like, hey, this is a good thing, let's do this. So we'll see. But yeah, 100% organic way to solve this problem, I really truly believe is coming. And even if we have to do it guerrilla style, we're gonna do it. I'm thinking about going up into, and I shouldn't say this but I'm thinking about going up into national forest and just like carving out shapes. And so that when the pine beetle comes through, like the people flying over to do the research have to be like, why is there a rectangle there? Why is there a triangle there? Like, what is happening to this? Just to get attention on the problem, just to be like, no, there is a solution, guys. We have solved this problem. Let's solve this problem.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that in a couple years, well, I'm hoping that this isn't a problem, but if we're looking at a pine beetle devastated forest, I want there to be a rectangle in that where it's such a stunning contrast that people are like, oh, we should pay attention to what happened right here.
Yeah, sometimes people need a little bit more attention drawn.
Exactly.
For some reason.
Well, what seems to have happened, and I think this is kind of an interesting way to tie up all of our conversation. What seems to have happened is the lumber industry has recognized that they have the ability to make more money on pine beetle damaged wood because it's stained blue inside. So all of these lumber companies are not only making more money, they're getting money from the government to to go out and harvest this wood, because that is what the solution is to go out and harvest this wood. So they're all seeing these profits increase. And I read this propaganda piece, or I had this propaganda piece read to me that was very clearly propaganda. I think it was from the National Forest Service, but it was like, we always knew that the pine beetle problem would come to an end because eventually they would run out of trees. And it's like, what? This is not a solution.
Yeah.
But I think it's an interesting mix of like how we can, in direct opposition to what you're doing, Mary, how capitalism can become the problem here, right? Like you're looking at capitalism as the solution. Like, hey, let's find ways to be community oriented, to make what we do, to make what we purchase matter. And we can take the exact opposite approach, and we can be like, oh, well, we'd really like to have blue stained wood that we can charge 5 times more. So let's just let the beetles run their course. So just another feather in your hat for what you have created and what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. There have been moments where I've toiled with that. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm just a retail store. I'm just another retail selling more stuff. And then I have to bring myself back to be like, okay, no, like these are alternatives to the problem.
Yes. With a thread of mindfulness and a thread of love, like streaming it all or connecting it all together.
Yeah, and all of the products that we sell, the people behind them are so friggin' amazing.
Yeah.
And that is a huge part of the story too. You know, all of the amazing people who have this passion that we all share are driving this new direction forward in the industry. So
we've thanked you via email, but this is an opportunity to thank you face to face. Thank you for the feature you did on Sacred Plant Company, and Patrick and I. We were so honored and, geez, quite floored by it.
Oh, absolutely, it was so nice.
Yeah,
able to connect.
It was so cool.
Yeah,
the whole interview process and what you came up with, and you were like, well, that interview was all you guys, and I was like, but you formulated the questions, girl. You had a lot to do with it as well. So that was such a it was such a great.
Yeah, I just like genuinely was so excited to get to know you guys after we met, and like we've chatted on the phone a couple times. I'm just like, I'm so excited for not only to meet you guys, but also to have our community meet you guys too through that way and get to know you a little bit better. So thank you for participating.
Of course. It just up levels your ability to continue to further spread your values, right? Because when you work with people of similar mindset and then also showcase them in a way that's fun and friendly and inviting and not intimidating, all those type of things create, up level that Pale Blue Dot experience for you and your customers. It's a brilliant idea, and again, something we're super grateful to be a part of.
Yay! I hope so. I hope that it's just nice to connect people with each other. It's like, hey, don't forget that you're not alone in this, feeling that you have to want to better this world.
Yes.
There's a lot of us out there.
Yes.
There's a lot of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dang. Yeah, that right there is the jam, right? Like what a great message to leave this conversation with is like, there are a lot of rad people trying to do really rad things on the planet, and never forget that you are definitely not alone.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Brian, anything left in your brain?
How could I spoil that beautiful ending? No way.
Well, Mary, thank you for everything that you do. Thanks for carving out this time to chat with us. We'll have links to paleblue.shop.com on the show notes. So go check out what Mary is doing. She's changing the world, making things rad, and that should be supported.
Yes.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm not ready for this hangout to be over, but time
We'll come back
Yeah.
in a year, and we'll do the updates on everything you've changed.
Yes.
Okay, I love it.
Yeah.
We'll see where I am in a year. I have no plans, so
Maybe even on that horse, up in
Perfect.
Ontario, Canada.
So
yes.
I want to say this before we go. Like everything, I I've told you this. Brian has been given one place that I wanted to do business with, and it was the Pale Blue Dot. Right after you guys reached out to us and I saw what you guys were doing, it was just like, that is such a rad place. And like getting to have this conversation with you, I recognize that like the way you do business and the way that we do business are just so similar. It's just like you started out with the idea of Pale Blue Dot is a bunch of things that I like doing, right? And it's like a collection of things that I really care about. And that is just, it's the way to do everything, in my opinion.
Yes. Fun. Yes.
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to be able to share it with people.
Yeah.
And to have people enjoy it. So
Super cool. And people should both enjoy it and appreciate it, right? Because the reality is, and I know I'm done, but the reality is there are not a lot of Pale Blue Dots in the world, right? Like we're not alone, but it's also, there are very few places that have the energy and the intention and the desires that a place like Pale Blue Dot has. And that's because of you. And it's also the community that is aware of you has to have that, has to really appreciate it, because those things make life valuable, and that is rad.
heck yeah.
Heck yeah.
I feel the love
Yeah.
so much. And
Heck
yeah, I mean it's so awesome to see this massive support out there for small businesses and conscious businesses and mindful businesses. So heck yeah, everyone.
Yes.
Saving the world.
Yes, for sure. Let's save the world.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Have
Thank you,
a
Mary.
beautiful rest of your day.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. You too. Take care.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Bye,
Love
Mary.
you guys.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.